Everyone wants to live an inspired life, yet so many people search for happiness following the footsteps of peers and taking advice from people who have different values and outcomes to which they're searching. There are people born into wealth, graduated from the best universities in the world, and there are people who have none of that and yet are living extraordinary lives full of fulfillment and reward. The purpose of this podcast is to share insights and strategies that allow you to question the status quo and think freely, so you can design your life and be who you want to be. We get one life. Time is our most valuable asset. I believe that when we're free and able to focus on meaningful work, we become better human beings. This is Always Free, and I'm your host, Jason Graystone.
Welcome to the leading podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can connect with Jason on social media and subscribe to the Jason Graystone YouTube channel for weekly videos. Don't forget to also subscribe to the weekly newsletter to receive frequent educational content and action steps to help you design your life so you can be who you want to be. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.
All right, welcome to the podcast. Episode 6. If you haven't listened to episode 5, go back and do that, because I gave some good tips on how to track your spending, and hopefully you're doing that. Hopefully you're tracking so that you're more aware about how you're spending your money. And again, lots of good feedback from that episode, so thank you very much for listening. This week I'm going to be going a bit more deeper into that. I'm going to share with you a couple of more strategies that you can use as a next step. I'm actually out in London today. I've just got back from an open evening for a new shop in London with my friend Guy Hipwell. And I was at this event and I got talking to this Scottish guy, and he was quite a young guy. And we was talking about the event, and we started talking about network events. Right, because tomorrow's Friday and I'm going to a network event. And we was talking about networking events, and he said, I've started doing a lot more networking events because everyone I seem to know, like my family and friends, they seem to, whenever they're in a social environment just between the friends, he said, he's really noticed, he's become aware of how everyone seems to want to talk about negative stuff. It's almost like, he said, it's almost like it's their way of approval by being negative. It's like they want to be negative, and they want to feel accepted by sharing negative news. It's like they're afraid to talk about anything positive because they won't be accepted. And he said, I just really became aware of it. So I've started, venturing out and meeting new people, and it just seems like a breath of fresh air. And he said, it's the same, I don't know about you guys, but I've found this as well, when I was around the estate, and when I was, definitely in my younger days, I'd surround myself with people who'd always talk, it's always the same conversation. It was like the weight, the job, the boss, the weather, the traffic was bad, money's bad, all that kind of stuff, all the negative stuff all the time. I don't know if you've found that yourself, but every time you get together, it's the same conversations. And it's almost like, right, let's meet up, let's talk about the same thing, bum, 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 negative, how bad everything is, right? And you kind of see it everywhere. Once you become aware of it, you see it everywhere. And that's what this guy was saying. He said, I just had to kind of venture out a bit, because I just noticed that everyone in my family was talking negative all the time. And, first of all, if you do become aware of that kind of thing, it is, I get it. It happened to me. The more you're if you're working on your self-development, if you're developing as a person, you're expanding your awareness of life. You're educating yourself. So you really realize that if you stop whining and just get on with it and kind of go and contribute and make a change and get stuff done and hold yourself accountable, you've got no reason to moan and complain. And that's what this guy was saying. He just said, look, I know that my life is in my control, and there's no point moaning. There's no point doing the same moaning over and over again. But another good thing about getting out and getting around the right people is because positivity kind of breeds more positivity. So you find it hard to be in an environment where the atmosphere sucks the life out of you. You just tend to not find those types of atmospheres. Someone asked me yesterday. They said, "Oh, I bet all your days are up days," and I said, "No, my days aren't up days. But I just accept that there's going to be some problems, some challenges, and I just get on with it." But when you're in these kind of social groups that kind of suck the life out of you, instead of sharing wins and talking about positive progress, most people just tend to talk about problems they're having. And it's almost like they feel that they've got to talk about the negatives so that they don't offend anyone. And when you're in those environments, it just feels like Groundhog Day. It's like they've set an agenda to go over each and every time they meet. Weight, job, boss, money, traffic, all that same thing. And it's like, oh man, But when you're focused on developing and moving forward and progressing, you can probably stomach these conversations a few times before you realise that they're just literally complaining about the same thing every time and doing nothing about it. This is the thing, they do nothing about it. There's been tons of times where I've just had to exclude myself from those environments. And yeah, there's been times where I thought, actually, this person sounds like they're going to change, and then they do nothing about it. They complain so much about something, and I think, well, they're definitely going to change, and they do nothing. It's just the same thing, years and years. Now, here's the kicker. The problem is, as you're developing as a person and you're becoming more aware, you're developing awareness, the difficulty is having these meetings with people or being around these people, but you feel like you want to give them advice, but the hard thing is giving them advice without sounding condescending. I wonder if any of you have had that, because you've built your awareness, so you know the answers to some of this stuff, but now, because the contrast is so big, because you're just hammering home on your self-development, there's such a big contrast that you struggle to even give advice. So you find yourself wandering into another room when you're in these environments, pacing around trying to figure out how you're going to even fit into that conversation anymore. And that's normal. That is generally what happens. That's called outgrowing people. And what you need to understand is there's just two types of people. There's ones that get what they want, and then there's the other people that achieve very little or nothing. And the people who get everything they want, they're the people who have a vision. They step into the vision and they just go for it. The people who never seem to get anywhere, they're what you call creatures of circumstance. They've got no strategy. They don't, they're not taking any actual steps to get success. And they also seem to think that life happens to them, if you know what I mean. They kind of think that they're just the victim. Life is just happening to them every day and they've got no control over it. And they focus on problems and they just end up attracting more and more problems. And it's all because they're vibrating on that negative frequency. So the event I went to, I was with Guy, my friend Guy Hipwell, and he actually said to me a couple of weeks back, he said, "I love our meetings, mate, because when I'm around you, I feel like, I'm my best self. I feel like I'm uplifted." And it's not that I deliberately give inspirational talks or stand there beating my chest like Tony Robbins. I'm not like woo-woo, all that kind of stuff. But all I do is just take control of my, I'm upbeat because I vibrate on that positive frequency. I'm accountable. I'm not complaining. I'm not moaning. I'm in control. I'm accepting the circumstance. I'm the driver of my life. So it's not like I'm just some airy-fairy, upbeat Tony Robbins who's always like, beating his chest. I'm just upbeat because why not be? You're in control of your life. So anyway, this guy at the party, he kind of said, I've really started venturing out and seeing another side of the coin. And he kind of said, what do you think? And I said, well, look, if you're in that environment and you feel like you're not growing from it, get out of it. Lose the people's numbers, get out of that, find a new network and get around people who aren't kind of stagnated. And that's what he was doing. It sounds harsh, but you don't have time for this. Like, how many times have you got left around the sun? Because I don't want to spend my time, my limited time, around people that are just going to talk about the same negative stuff every day. I haven't got time to do that. You need to cut the fat. Like, get focused on your life. And then if you're one of those people who becomes stuck in a rut or like these Groundhog Day conversations, try focusing on what you can control rather than what you can't control. When you focus on like the size of you instead of the size of your problems, you start having amazing shifts in the way that you spend your time. There's a very kind of simple synopsis you can follow. Ask yourself, do you have a problem? If the answer is yes, ask yourself, can you do something about it? If the answer is no, then don't worry. If the answer is yes, then don't worry. And if you ask yourself, do you have a problem, and the answer is no, well then don't worry. Because if you've got a problem and you can do something about it, well then don't worry, just do something about it. And if you can't do something about it, don't worry on what you can't control, just worry on about what you can control. Anyway, that's enough on the rants, but I do just want to carry on from what I said about Groundhog Day and people moaning about money. Because one of the things that you find is they complain that they've never got enough money, and that's, such a common conversation that comes up. And last week's episode, I asked you to go and track what you were spending. But I also mentioned we need to kind of get the mind right in terms of gaining control over money. And I mentioned a part of your brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala is a part of your brain that wants to survive. It doesn't like, it likes to know that it's going to be safe in the immediate future. But we also need to understand that if we want to, get control over our finances and really master this, we need to get our survival brain in check, because we need to be able to make decisions that kind of go against what most people deem as comfortable, let's say. So I want you to think about what you consider is a lot of money to carry around with you. As a rule of thumb, let's just say a few weeks' pay. So let's just say, between £1,000 and £2,000. In fact, let's just say £1,000 or $1,000 just to keep it simple. And the idea is that you carry that amount on your person at all times. Because so many years, like in evolution, we've paid for everything in cash before cards and Apple Pay and PayPal. By having £1,000 cash on you at all times, it keeps that amygdala part of your brain, the animal brain we call it, in check. It keeps it calm because it tells you that you're able to survive for a week if you lost everything. And it sounds like outlandish, but it works, trust me. What it does, it actually keeps your survival mechanism in check, because it tells it that if everything around you went to pot right now, you can survive the immediate future. And you might be asking yourself, okay, yeah, but how will this help me get rid of negative thoughts about money? Well, here's the thing. There'll be all sorts of excuses and objections coming to the front of your mind now, like, what if I get mugged? What if people think I'm flash? And that's the whole point. If you think, if I have money, I will get mugged, well, then you've still got a negative belief towards money. You think that if by having money, you will attract muggers. You think that life is happening to you. And if you think you'll lose it, well, then guess what you'll do if you ever attract money? You'll lose it. You'll get rid of it as quickly and as fast as you can, just like those lottery winners. You see the lottery winners that win the lottery, they blow it all in no time. And another hidden benefit to the exercise is if you've got cash on you, you appreciate how much things cost a bit more. So, we're tracking our expenses now. If you went into an Apple store and went to buy an iPhone, sticking £800 on a credit card doesn't really seem real. But if you start getting the cash out and counting out 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, you think, wow, that's a lot of money. So it helps you think about what you're spending as well. And what this helped me do was to not spend money on things I didn't need, because I didn't want to break a £50 note. So you end up not buying the coffee and all the little things, the chocolate bars and the stuff that adds up. Remember, your wealth is not limited by how much you earn, it's what you spend your money on. So I highly recommend trying this exercise out. Try it for at least 90 days. They say it takes 45 days to remove a habit, then around 45 days to install new habits. So give it a go, and I promise that it will have an impact on your life. And I think you'll even start to attract more money by doing it instead of attracting problems. So remember, the exercise is to carry a week's money on you at all times. And if you lose it, then you have to find it again. If you spend it, you've got to make up the difference. So give that a go and let me know how you feel. And let me know what difference it makes. All right, and just to finish off, last week I mentioned I was going to talk a little bit more about how to optimize the expenses because you're tracking what you spend. Now, I'm not a fan of scrimping. I'm not a fan of driving 10 miles up the road because you get 2p difference in fuel. I'm not that. I don't really like that. I don't promote that. But as you're tracking your expenses, what we can do is we can become aware of where we're leaking, and we just want to patch that up. But instead of scrimping and being like, really, really tight, which I don't like, I like to think of, once we understand what we're losing, where it's leaking, I like to think of a way of optimizing that leak. So instead of, now you've written down everything that's leaking out of your bucket, what we want to do is we want to see how we can use that now to accelerate wealth, accelerate our way to financial independence. And there are things you can do. So first of all, if you've got your list of stuff that you're spending, particularly track kind of unused memberships. They're a massive one. Life insurance, you could do a negotiation on your life insurance, energy costs, gym memberships. Lots of people don't go to the gym, but they've got this running gym membership. Another one is inflating your tires on your car, making sure they're inflated, because believe it or not, that does use a lot of fuel if you've got flat tires on your car. Looking after your teeth. I know a guy who was just on his way abroad to get a cheaper operation that was going to cost him £20,000. It would have been £60,000 if he'd been in the UK, and it's because he wasn't looking after his teeth. So it all came to a head. Massive outlay on your teeth. But if you just look after your teeth, you're going to save a lot of money in the long run. Things like turning off your power to your appliances. You can buy these kind of strip power things that automatically go off because your TV and all the rest of it is using this pretty much the same power when it's in standby than it is when you're watching the TV. So it's well worth checking out those kind of power strip things. Changing all your lights for LEDs, cooking your own meals, maybe stop going out as much for meals. Turning your hot water down a few degrees, install a thermostat in your house if you haven't got one. Stop buying takeaway coffee. If you've got, try walking to work. If you've got a car that you don't really use a lot of, sell it. Get better deals on your insurance, your energy suppliers. Stop buying expensive cleaning products. Get some of the cheaper cleaning products. Consolidate any debts that you might have, and that kind of thing, right? So really go through the list and see how you can save. And what you want to do is, next to that list, write a kind of priority of how much of a priority it is and how much you could actually save in doing that. Now, you might work out that you could have, £200 a month saving. It's quite easy to save up to 10% doing this exercise. You might have £100, £200, £300 saving every month. So once you've got that saving, what you want to do is you want to optimize the savings. So optimize that cash. So spend it like you was going to spend it anyway, but accelerate your journey to financial independence by spending it on an Audible membership, or spending it on books, or spending it on a seminar or a webinar, or go to a networking event. Or if you're running some business expenses, you might save that and hire another team member, or outsource some of those jobs that take up a lot of your time. You might hire a mentor or a coach. You might increase your savings. You might just save it. You might increase that cash buffer that I spoke about having 3 to 6 months of savings. Put it in there. You might add it in there and accelerate that, so it allows you to think clearer. So I want you to think of it in terms of optimizing what you're already spending, rather than scrimping and saving and, cutting down on this, cutting down on that, and like living like a peasant. That's not what it's about. You need to feel inspired in this journey. You need to feel good. And it's not about that. So I want you to do that. Let me know, kind of how much you managed to save. Let me know if you've allocated those expenses elsewhere and how you've done that. And just give it a go, and also carry the cash on you. So hopefully you do it. So next week we're going to be talking about automating your banking and stuff like that. More mindset stuff. I look forward to seeing you then. Until then, take care, have a good one, and I'll see you then.
Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.